Welcome to the Transformative Principal podcast, where we learn how to be an amazing educational leader. I am your host, Jethro Jones. Are you ready to be a transformative principal? I'm looking for about 10 people who are ready to do what it takes to lead with integrity, find balance, and take your school to the next level. If you're looking to improve your leadership in a measurable way, go to transformativeprincipal.org/mastermind to see if you qualify to join a group of like-minded people who are ready to be the best principals in the country. Welcome to Transformative Principal. Today, I'm excited to have Stephen Sroka on the podcast. I became acquainted with Stephen when I got an email from the executive director of our Principals Association, and she had a great thing to share, and so I thought it'd be wonderful to have him on the program. So I'm excited to talk with him, and I hope that you are excited to learn from him. This is a powerful message of connecting and hope and support for those that we're working with. So thank you for taking the time to listen, and please share this with someone else who is in need. And as today is Christmas, just want to say Merry Christmas, and this is kind of a special edition of Transformative Principal for this day. Welcome to Transformative Principal. I am really excited to have Dr. Stephen Sroka on the program today. He has an inspiring story and is going to share a special gift in a toxic society today, and I'm excited to have him. He's someone who started out living in poverty and changed his life through his will to become an educator and a national speaker. He's keynoting all over the place this coming up in 2017 and has been for some time now. So, Stephen, thank you so much for being on the Transformative Principal podcast today. And I obviously gave just a tiny short bio, and I'm sure there's a lot more there. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, okay. It's first of all, Jeffro, it's really great to be here and to just share the stories, and especially with principals, because I have such a respect for principals. I was one for a very short time in my life. And, being a principal today is very, very difficult. It's really where the buck stops in the schools. And, if you mess up, well, as a principal, you get the blame. And if you do really, really well, the superintendent takes the credit. So it's right. An interesting job today. For me to end up in education is really, really, really wild, because I grew up in poverty. My father left. I grew up on welfare. And I had a lot of learning problems, and I couldn't learn like other people. Actually, I failed the third grade, and the teacher wrote at the top of my report card, "Parent notified boys retarded." What was interesting about that is that the teacher misspelled the word. But nevertheless, I went through elementary school being labeled retarded. I also had a speech impediment. I couldn't pronounce S's, so I called myself Mo. I also got into another fight, and I got a crossed eye, and we couldn't afford glasses. So throughout elementary, I had a crossed eye, speech impediment. I couldn't pronounce S's. My name is Steve Sroka, so that's why I called myself Mo. And, labeled retarded, and obviously never felt really good in schools. Had a lot of difficult time learning. By the way, later I found out I still am ADHD and dyslexic, so I learn in pictures. I don't learn in words, and still I have a hard time. If you give me your phone number, actually, I'll tell you, Jeff, I just called you up on the phone to make sure everything was cool. I dialed the wrong number. Somebody else. And I'm going, this is too wild. So I have a problem still with dyslexia. So I'm dyslexic, and I'm ADHD, and I'm a doctor. And I teach at a med school, and I think it's an interesting scenario for a lot of people, because, people have told me I had disabilities my whole life, and really I look at those as more or challenges, but now I think they're gifts, because I get to see things a little different than other people do, and I like I say, I look at them as gifts. It's a gift that I got, and it's pretty cool. I obviously did not do well in school, had a hard time. I couldn't be like other kids, so I started to play like a lot of kids do. I started to play sports. I started to shoot the rock, and shoot the rock is playing basketball. Slinging the rock is doing drugs, but I was shooting the rock.
Small difference there.
Big difference there. And I became pretty good. I became a legend in my own mind, actually. And one day, two brothers, two inner city guys, took me outside and beat me up so badly, they knocked both of the femurs out of my hips. I had both of the bones of my hips. They were knocked out of the socket. And there must have been another issue going on with me at that time, because that's not normal. But I couldn't walk. And I went to the hospital, and the pain was in my knees, ironically, and they took pictures of my knees, and they said, "You're fine, you can go home." And luckily an orthopedic went by and said, "Hey, if his knees hurt, take a picture of his hips." And they did. And they found out, they went, "Oh my God, your hips are right out of the socket." So they put a pin in one, and they took some bone off of my ankle, and they reformed the other one. So I was in the hospital for 99 days back in the day, and they did one operation then the other. When I talk with kids today, I joke about I had 99 problems, but the hips weren't one. If you're working with kids, they know the rap music.
Yeah, they do.
We won't go into what that song actually means, but I had 99 days in the hospital, and the doctors came in and said, "Steve, you better start to use your brain because your body's not going to work." And I said, "How can I use my brain? I'm retarded." And the doctor said, "Hey, time to get unretarded." It's a different time. We can't even use those words anymore. But
yeah,
I said, how do you get unretarded? He said, "Well, start to listen to your teachers." And I like to joke about the more I listened to them, the smarter they got. And I had to learn a different way to learn. We were on welfare. I didn't go to college right away. In fact, my high school counselor called me in, and we sat down and talked. My grades were getting a little better, but he just looked at me and said, "Hey, you don't have the IQ to go to college." But he didn't know I had the I will, and damn it, I did.
Yeah.
But way back then, it was something in me to say, "Hey, I got to get out of this place." It's like, I had to get out of the projects, but I couldn't right away because my family was on welfare. So I got a job and took my mother and brother and sister off of welfare, and then went to college. And at that time, I wanted to teach English. There were no jobs. I ended up getting a job in chemistry. I became a polymer chemist, and I was making a lot of money. But one day I woke up, and it was like in the middle of the night, and I said, "What's the meaning of life?" I was a polymer chemist at that time, and I was making beer can coatings. And I was thinking, well, are beer can coatings important? Well, obviously they are to some people, but to me, I thought there's got to be more to life. And I thought about my life, and I said, boy, what can I do to make a difference? And I thought, maybe I should go into education. I had such a rough time there. Maybe I can go in and maybe help some of the people that had problems like I did. And I took a job in teaching. It was at a time where you could start teaching with no credentials as long as you started to take college classes, and took a 60% cut in pay, went into teaching, and never looked back, and just stayed in teaching. And I wanted to teach English, but there were no jobs, so I started to teach health. I started to teach science. Because of my chemical background, they told me I could teach science. And then one day, the principal came. I was inner city, pretty much teaching in inner city, and the principal came in and said, "What's going on here?" And he said, "We just lost another health teacher." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, he didn't relate well to the kids, and these were classes of 100 kids in a class. They threw a table at him. They shut the lights off and threw a table at him." He said, "You want to teach health?" And I said, "What's health about?" He says, "Well, sex and drugs." I said, "I'll do it." Sounds better than earth science,
Yeah.
And I did that, and then I went on. I got after I did that for a while, I went back on a master's in administration, principal certificate, superintendent certificate. Did that for a year. Went through the whole practicum, and I just said, "Wow, this isn't me." At that time, the only people I would see would be kids that were in trouble, and so that wasn't any fun. So I went back, taught health. Got kind of radical, tried to deal with a lot of issues that kids were dealing with, like sex, drugs, and violence. Almost got fired, and then got named a health teacher of the year. And then all of a sudden, I guess I was a little ahead of the curve, dealing with HIV and dealing with drugs and violence. I was doing this stuff before it became fashionable and funded, and got a lot of recognition. And then went back to school and went back to Case Western. And, I actually have a PhD from the School of Medicine and Education, a unique degree. It's a blend of two. Medicine is cool, but being an MD, you only make your money if you cut or drug, and I wanted to help. I wanted to prevent. And so I teach at the med school now, and I train physicians. Teachers are tough because teachers think they know everything, but physicians, they know everything. So they're a lot harder to work with. But I've been very, 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 very blessed in education. And, I was the Disney Health Teacher of the Year. I got the award from Cindy Crawford at the Disney Awards. And I can tell you, Cindy has incredible assets. I mean, she's just when I say that, some people go, what did he just say? But what I mean is, like Cindy, in America, we judge our women by their booties, not their brains. And, Cindy's just an incredible person. And it was first in her class in high school, a class valedictorian. A lot of people don't know that. But I'm in the National Teachers Hall of Fame, which I'm really, really proud of, although most people don't even know one exists. And I always suggest to principals, every year, why don't you nominate a teacher for the National Teachers Hall of Fame? And, even if you don't get it, what a great effort. I mean, your staff sees you nominating them for a national award. And I always tell the principals the best way to do that is don't you pick one. Let the staff anonymously, everybody vote for somebody other than yourself. That'll be the principal. That'll be the one that the principal will nominate that year. And it's just a good idea. But I got a ton of teaching awards and I'm really proud of them. But I can tell you, Jeff, at this time of my life, I realized that the best teachers and the best principals that I ever see don't get awards, don't want awards. They just want to do their job. My wife's a teacher. She's a better teacher than I ever was. And she has no awards, nor does she want any awards. She just wants to do her job. So, I humbly accept all the awards, but I know probably most, and many of the good teachers will never get an award. And yet they're great teachers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really something that is powerful. And that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is to find people who are normal, everyday principals making a powerful impact on their schools. And they're not necessarily getting the recognition that others are. In my very first interview way back 3 years ago was with the principal of D Elementary, and nobody knows who D Elementary is, but she was a powerhouse principal and did fantastic things, Sandra Jolovich Motes. And, she was just a super hardworking lady. And that's, part of why I'm doing this, is to help shed some light on people who weren't always getting that recognition. And one of the things that I heard about you with is the gift in a toxic society. And I want to talk about some of the other things that you do as well. But since this is going to be released on Christmas and we're all getting and giving gifts at this time of year, can you talk about the gift in a toxic society and what that means and why that matters to you?
Yeah. And what you just said, I think is so important, Jeff. I go to a lot of conferences. I hear a lot of people. And sometimes I'll hear some of these big name speakers get up. They've written their books and stuff, and you get up and it's like, And then you go and you hear this teacher from nowhere, or principal from like nowhere, talking about what they do in their school, and you're just overwhelmed. You go, this is incredible. And I think for you to give light to people like that, there are so many good people doing so many good things, and letting that word get out there is really, really good. I think a lot of times at these conferences, some of these people forgot what it was like to do what they used to do because they haven't done it for so long.
Yeah.
It's like teachers telling you how to teach who have never taught, like you see in colleges a lot. And so anyhow, the gift in us is in a toxic society. I think this is the perfect gift you could give this year. It's a gift that you can't buy. It costs you nothing, but it costs you everything. But even if you see it, and it's on my website, and you can check it out. There's a story behind it that I'd love to share right now. It kind of gives even more meaning to it.
Please.
My job right now is I go around and deal with a lot with sex and drugs and violence in schools, and dealing with it and putting schools back together after a crisis. And I'd gone to Indiana, and there was a boy who had died there. A football player died drinking alcohol. He suffocated on his own vomit, and it was a real sad situation. We tried to put the community together, do some prevention, intervention stuff, and I'm flying back, and it was around this time of year, several years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, as I'm flying, what am I going to buy my wife for Christmas? I'm going, whoa, I just buried somebody, and I'm thinking about buying my wife something for Christmas. So a lot of times when I'm in a crisis situation like this, I kind of I talk to my creator and say, man, I need a little direction here. And Jeff, on that plane ride, I got this idea of the gift. And basically what it is that you take out a piece of paper, no computers, no smartphones. You take out a real piece of paper and you get a pen or a pencil. And at the top, you write the gift. And then you write the whole prompt here is that I don't want to die, but if I do, I want you to know that. And then you tell that person in your writings. I was thinking, like, this is such a cool idea. I got my wife a present. It'll take me 5 minutes to write it, and it won't cost me anything, and I'll be done. Well, it turned out that this took me like weeks, and my hand was killing me, and by the time I got it. But what you do is you put at the top, I don't want to die, but if I do, I want you to know that. And then in your own handwriting, you tell that person what they mean to you. And like, what do they do that make you laugh? What do they make you do that makes you cry? What are your dreams? What are your fears? And if you were to die and could only come back for 3 minutes, what would you tell that person? And you put that in that letter. And I know it sounds so trite. You can say it in 30 seconds, but I'm telling you, Jethro, you do this thing right. It will change your life. It will change the person you love's life. You give them that letter, like I gave it to my wife, and then I watched her read it. And I looked her in the eyes as she read it. And she cried, and I cried, and she laughed, and I laughed. And it'll bring smiles and tears to your face. And it's a perfect holiday gift. You can't buy it. The person that gets it will probably never throw it away. It'll probably be read long after you're gone. And when I travel, and I travel a lot now, if I were not to make it home one time, my wife could pull out my gift and read it, and she's going to know what she means to me. I've been doing this now for a couple of years, and I have principals around the country that give this to their staff at a staff meeting, and many of them give it as a writing prompt to their students. They give it to their teachers to use it for students. And I get letters back from students and parents and principals and teachers, and how this thing changed their life. I mean, I have emails here where people said it saved their marriage. Other people said it pulled their family back together. It's an incredibly simple yet incredibly profound activity. And you really, to do it right, you got to put everything you got into it. But when you do, you got something that is just, it's priceless out there. Now, what happened to me is, like, I go out to schools a lot of times, like I say, after a death, and it's not unusual for people to just get in my arms and cry and say, I should have told my kid or somebody that I loved them a whole lot more. And sometimes in life, the truth is you don't get a last chance. And so when I suggest now for that person you really love, write the gift today, because there is no guarantee for tomorrow. And this is a toxic society. As we talk here today, just look at the news today. We got all over the world. We got buses killing people. It's a toxic society out there. And, it's funny because I just got a call from a television station about possibly doing this. And the producer is going, but I don't like that line. I don't want to die. Well, no one wants to die. But look at the headlines today. We live in a toxic society. And I can tell you, in a lot of schools I work with, this thing is just like, they tell me it's the perfect holiday gift, like from middle school and above. I think to put down in writing what someone means to you and give it to them, have them read it back to you, it makes for a Christmas gift you'll never, ever, ever forget. And, if anybody wanted to, they could go to my website. It's up there. In fact, I'll tell you, Jethro, I actually put this thing together in a PDF form. If there's any principal out there, because you don't have to do this at Christmas time. You can give the gift any time of year, actually. It's better at this time of year. But if anybody wants it, I will send it to them in Word format. And you can put your school letterhead on and send it out. It's a gift. I spoke at the Pennsylvania School Concerts Conference, and afterwards they made a video, and that's one of the videos on my website. But a book publisher came over and said, "Hey, Steve, let's put this out in a little white brochure. We can sell it for a couple bucks. You're going to make a lot of money. So we just call it the gift." He said, "Easy to sell. It's such a great idea." And I said, "I really can't do that." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because then it wouldn't be a gift." Mm-hmm. So I didn't do it, and I really like to just share the idea. It was a gift given to me that made a big difference in my life. And like I say, some state principal organizations have actually sent this out to all their members, and I'm willing to share it because that's what it's about. And it really made a difference to me this year, because I've been doing this for a couple of years. But Jethro, I died this year. And do we have time to tell this story?
Yes, please. I think this is powerful.
You couldn't write a better script. And I'm keynoting like 6 or 8 major conferences with this idea this year. I've always been known as the Power of One speaker. I've always said that. Look at my background. Look what I did. I made it. I went through all this stuff. I came out on top. And I went around the world talking about the Power of One. I was on Oprah. I was covered all over the place. Power of One, making a difference. And that's what I did for a bunch of years. That you can make a difference no matter what. You can make a big difference. Well, this year, I deal a lot with the latest crisis right now. Heroin is where I live is huge right now. So we have more people dying from heroin overdoses where I live in Cleveland than we do from car accidents and homicides, and it's huge. And I was speaking at a school system right outside of Cleveland in Medina, Ohio, about heroin in front of 800 people. It was actually January 15th of this year. And in front of 800 people, I died. I had a cardiac arrest. I went down so hard that they assumed I had a concussion, but I went down. Now, sometimes I make points with people when you work with teachers. You're a principal, you got to do crazy things to get their attention. And some people that knew about me thought, well, maybe he's just doing this to get attention. But luckily, there was a principal there, and that principal looked at me and said, that guy is not kidding around. 2 SROs were in the audience. And if you can believe this, Jeff, maybe you know this, 90% of all people who have a cardiac arrest die. 90%. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get treatment, if you don't get an AED on you within a minute, you start to lose brain function. By 3 minutes, man, you got serious, serious problems. I went down, and within a minute, Jeff, they had one officer on me doing CPR. The other officer ran out, got the AED. The principal, and that was Alan Mike, the principal, Andy Brenner, was trained, if you can believe this, 2 weeks before with AED. 2 weeks before. He came over, put that on me, and they blasted me, and I came back. For me, when I went to the Cleveland Clinic, and that's where they took me, the director of the whole Cleveland Clinic heart unit came over and said, man, you are just, it's hard to believe your story, to go down, have people on you within a minute, to have an AED outside the door, to have, it was just an incredible story. He said, people like you, they should be dead. And I just feel so blessed that the way that went down like that, and I've used this idea of the gift before, and I always talked, if I die, well, hell, I did die this year. Yeah. I didn't get any white flashes or anything like that. But to die and to come back, I get the goosebumps just thinking about that. And I'm just so fortunate to be here. My real gift this year is that I am still alive. And, I died. I came back. And a principal saved my life. That is so cool. Now, there's other little part to this. This Power of One guy that was being life flighted because they thought I was dying. And what was really, really crazy was that when I went down, there were so many coincidences, although people say there are no coincidences, there are just things you don't understand. They had the officers there, they had the principal there. When I went down, there was a school psych in the audience that knew my daughter, who was a school psych, but this girl Rachel did not know me, but she knew my name and she knew my daughter. She called my daughter as I went down, and my daughter was able to talk to the EMS and give them some medical information about me, which probably helped save my life.
Wow.
Too. On the way to the hospital, I called my other daughter, who was a teacher. She was driving to the Cleveland Clinic to see me because they don't know if I'm going to die or not. And she looks up as she gets close, and she's crying. She looks up, and there's a helicopter landing at the Cleveland Clinic. And she thought, I'm going to take a picture just in case it's my dad. It was. How ironic. When I went back and talked to the transport unit at the Cleveland Clinic, and I showed them the picture, they said, that's you. They said, that is so incredible. You talk about a coincidence. There's your daughter coming up there to see you, hoping you're still alive, and she takes a picture and catches you landing at the Cleveland Clinic. The superintendent from the school, afterwards, in a couple of weeks, he emailed me over and said, Steve, I just got to tell you this. We always had a core of about 75, 50 teachers that go out after every meeting every year, and they do a prayer group. He said that day, the 50 teachers went out and formed a prayer group. They were praying for you. But he said the other 750 people, as they left the auditorium, saw them, and he said, every person came over. He said, you had 800 people praying for you in a prayer circle.
Wow.
And I guess it worked. It was just so many things. I mean, 2 weeks before that, Jethro, I was in Punta Cana. I would have been dead for sure. That would have happened on my ride out that morning. I probably would have been dead. To have it go down like that, it's just so incredible. And it's kind of funny too. Educators saved my life when I was a teenager. When those doctors said, pay attention to your teacher, that saved my life. And here it is way down the road. Again, principals and educators saved my life, literally, for the second time. I mean, they saved my life early on, putting me on the right path, getting educated, and then later on actually saved my life. And I mean, that's just, to me, is so incredible. But here's the life-saving change for me. As I'm being life-flighted, and I'm dying. I'm laying there as I'm in the helicopter. The people were great, and they're life-flighting me, and they're going, hey, you can relax. And I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody in the audience has ever thought they were dying. When you think you're dying, you don't want to go to sleep because you figure that's it. And I'm going I'm there, and they're going, relax. I'm going, I can't relax. I mean, if I relax, I might die. And I can't relax. And I'm laying there and I'm going, hey, I'm a motivational speaker. I've gone around the world. I told people I go out to kids and to staff and I say, hey, it's my body, my choice. I'm not your toy. I'm the power of one. I can do it. And I'm going, what would I tell somebody in my position? I'm going, well, hey, I'm the power of one. I got, it's my body, my choice. I'm not your toy. I am the power. I can make it. And I'm laying there, Jethro, and you know what? I realize I can't. And for the first time in my life, I really realized the power of one was not enough. I needed the power of many. If these doctors didn't do their job, if that SRO, if that principal wouldn't have been there, and the other doctors I have yet to see, if they can't do what they need to do, I'm not going to live.
Yeah.
And I just had this realization at that time, and I get goosebumps when I tell you right now, is on that helicopter ride, I lived my life thinking I was the power of one, and I was doing all this stuff. Jethro, it wasn't me. I had a team behind me. I just never saw it. I never realized it. I thought it was me. Even back in school, I had all those teachers pushing for me. I'm sure I had a principal out there trying to direct me in the right way. I had all these people pushing for me, and I always thought it was just me. And on that flight, I just had this, all of a sudden I realized, hey, it's not the power of one. It's the power of many. And why that resonates so well for everything I do right now, a principal. You can't do it by yourself. You need everybody in that school working with you. If you're a teacher, sure, you go to your classroom, but hey, if those other teachers aren't working with you, with those kids, it's not going to make a difference. In every job you have, as I was in that helicopter and I'm thinking about the power, I'm wondering, how about the person that put the gasoline or diesel fuel in that helicopter that morning? How about the person, the EMS that fueled up that ambulance that took me over there? How about the nurses that were cleaning up the room where there were all these people behind? And sometimes, when, we go on and we look and we give this one person all this credit, it's not like that in real life. And here I was and I do think there is a power of one. When I go out to talk right now, I do a lot of work with Native Americans, and we have this thing that you have the power of one to start a fire, but you need the power of many to keep that fire burning. And boy, I really believe that is my message right now. Actually, my whole message when I talk now is about relationships, because if you can't relate, nothing else really matters. Yeah. But you've got to work together as a team. And on that helicopter ride, it changed my life. The power of one became the power of many. And I'm just really, really blessed to be able to experience that. I just found it interesting that that educators have saved my life twice.
Yeah.
And having a principal save you, that is so cool. And Andy, he's such a cool guy too. I taught him several times, obviously, and he said, you know what? and this is a good message for all you principals out there. He said, our plate is full today, isn't it? I mean, we have so many things to do. And then they wanted me to do AED training. And he said, you know what? He said, that night when I went home, I told my wife, I'll never doubt AED training again.
Yeah. It's one of those things where when you don't have it, then you don't think about it. But when you do and you actually have to use it, then it really, impacts your life forever. And he'll be a testifier of that for the rest of his life, I'm sure.
Right. And we think it's important for kids in school too, because I mean, there's always, you're always going to hear about the problem every once in a while they have with a student having a cardiac arrest or heart attack. But you think about those kids, what are the ages of their parents, their grandparents that they often live with, And so they, having the skills of doing CPR and AED, may be able to save somebody that they love in their life. So, yeah, the idea, I think, is a good one to learn the basic CPR and to know about how to do AEDs, because truly it's a life-saving skill, And in many states now they're pushing it. They're making state mandate. Well, they're passing state recommendations because there's just so much to do for every principal out there. But I'll tell you, with Andy Brenner, I am so happy he knew about AEDs and they had a couple SROs. And I mean, I'm just really, really blessed. And as many people have told me, this is no mistake. You're still here. You're here to get this message out and let people know this is important stuff out there. And I feel blessed. I felt blessed before I died, actually, with the idea of the gift. But now it really, 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 really means a lot more to me now, because if I wouldn't have done it, I would have left a whole lot of people without letting them know how much they really meant to me. And, you can say things to them, but, I've done a letter to my wife and my kids, and they got it back to me. And those are the gifts you never get rid of. So I just tell people, when you think about giving something this year, forget about all of the stuff you can buy. Do what you can't buy, the gift. And if your school system can't do the gift in a toxic society, they can still do a gift. But I think in this toxic society it becomes even really more important, because there are no guarantees in life. And that's my job. I go out and I see many people that are just, they didn't get a second chance to write this letter. So I really, really appreciate, you letting me come on and share this gift with other people, because it is the best gift you can give or that you could receive, I believe, at this time of the year.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was a great interview with Dr. Steven Sroka, and I sure learned a lot, and I hope you did too. If there's one thing you take away, it's the opportunity to do that gift in a toxic society. I hope you'll take a moment to do that and really put down on paper your feelings and what you appreciate about other people and what you want them to know and how they impact your life. That's a really powerful thing. We're going to have a part 2 of the conversation with him next week, so please come back for that, and that's going to be a great conversation with him as well. Transformative Principal is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators by educators. Visit edupodcastnetwork.com for more great podcasts.